You guys, I've read thousands of comments across YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, all about Linkin Park and their decision to release new music with a new singer. And as a professional therapist, I've gone back and forth on what I think about this decision. Is this honoring to Chester's legacy, or is it dishonoring? Is Emily the right person to fill this role? Is there anyone who could fill this role? Should they have started over under a new name, a new project? Or is this the right direction to move forward? I'm gonna walk you through my process of analyzing all of these different perspectives, and I'll reveal the 3 comments that helped me land on my own perspective and decision about this situation. And lastly, I'll show you how we can actually use Chester's music to navigate through this controversial moment. Let's do it. Before we dive into the comments, let's look at some facts. Linkin Park released their first new track since the tragic passing of their iconic Chester Bennington. They replaced Chester with Emily Armstrong, originally of the band Dead Sarah. They also replaced Rob Borden, their drummer, with Colin Britton. And they announced all of this in a huge live stream performance where they performed a bunch of their old discography, including work that Chester had been on, and some of their new discography. They announced a world tour and released an interview on Apple about their journey up until this point. And Chester's passing absolutely shook the world. And now this new era is shaking their fan base. People are divided on whether or not this is the right or the wrong decision. And after reading thousands of comments, I've come to see there are 4 primary camps that people fall in. Before I decided which one I wanted to land in myself, it was really important to me that I looked through and understood each camp so that I was making an informed decision. Camp 1 is that this is wrong from the start. There are people who believe that fundamentally, Linkin Park rebirthing at all is a huge mistake. They think that without Chester, there should be no Linkin Park. These are some of the comments from people in this camp. No Chester, no Linkin Park. The band died with him. Bro, in my opinion, this is unacceptable. Create a new band, by the way. This is just my humble opinion, but this actually makes me feel bad in a way because it makes it look like Chester was nothing but just a member of Linkin Park, which he wasn't. Linkin Park died with him. They should have ended the band in honor of Chester, not continue selling or trying to replace him. After reading these kinds of comments, I came to an understanding of this perspective. The loss is too big to even touch. There is a holiness to the situation, to the loss, that feels like it would defile it if we moved on. This perspective believes that moving on is forgetting. Moving on is devaluing the impact, the importance. It feels like the only path forward is to let Chester and the band rest in peace, to move away, because to move on would be devaluing and dishonoring of his memory. Camp 2 is that this is just the wrong sound. They'd be open to a new chapter, but they just don't like the direction musically. It sounds awful now. Why are people lying? You can't just make something that sounds like a karaoke cover version of your own song and expect people to like it. I think Emily is doing great, but she's missing one thing Chester did very well: emotion. I felt the emotion from Chester when he sang. Either be sad or angry, it hit different. In my opinion, it sounds like she's just singing, screaming for the sake of the song. Don't get me wrong, she sounds good, but the songs feel a bit empty. This perspective makes a lot of sense. Chester is a unique talent. He's so special in the way that he is able to convey emotion through his voice. Fans feel disappointed that that unique quality doesn't feel like it's being expressed yet with Emily. And with a band of this caliber, they have literally limitless options of who could replace Chester. And although no one can actually replace him, they feel like they could have gotten someone who maybe gets a little closer to that perfect sound that made Linkin Park what it was when Chester was a part of it. Camp 3 is that this is just the wrong person. There are people who would be open to a new sound, a new start, but after investigating Emily and her past, they feel like her character doesn't stand up against Chester and his legacy, and it's actually dishonoring to him to have her as the new vocalist. There are comments going all around the internet about Emily being a Scientologist and a supporter of a rapist. What they're talking about is a couple of things. She was seen at a gala, a Scientology gala with Cedric, who also has been posting comments about how she is a Scientologist and a rape apologist on his Instagram. The rape apologist statements are coming from her involvement with Danny Masterson, who is currently in prison for 2 charges of sexual assault. If these things are true, it makes a lot of sense why people would be upset, because they dishonor Chester's legacy and his story. Chester was a survivor of sexual assault himself, and he is someone who died by suicide, and Scientologists don't believe in psychiatry or therapy. As a professional, I hesitate to make these broad strokes without hearing more of the evidence come forward. Since this video was filmed, Emily did in fact release a statement about her relationship with Danny Masterson, saying that she is no longer friends with him, she does not condone his behavior, and she does believe that he is guilty, and she is in full support of survivors. She did not mention anything about her relationship with Scientology, and some fans are still conflicted on if this is enough or if she is still not the person to be replacing Chester in Linkin Park. Camp 4 is new beginnings. There are people that are ecstatic about getting to experience Linkin Park again reimagined and are excited about the new sound. It's a good decision to let a woman sing. A male voice would have always been compared to Chester. This is the only way to start a new chapter. I'll pretend this is a whole new band. This isn't a replacement for Chester. This is the start of a new Linkin Park, and I'm all for it. If Mike is happy, I'm happy too. What a time to be alive. I get to see Linkin Park back. Linkin Park is back. The world is healing. This one is one of my favorites. We'd like to think that our music will always be bigger than any one of our individual personalities. Someone commented on YouTube, but it's something that Chester actually said himself, which I think should hold a little bit of weight. People want to continue experiencing something that they love, even if it's in a new way. They'd rather have a new version of a good thing than nothing at all. They don't see this new chapter as dishonoring. They see it as actually honoring the past and growing through that past. And some people see it opportunistically. All you haters in the comments just means it's easier for the real Linkin Park fans to get dicks. As I was feeling each of these camps, there was something underneath that felt really unaddressed. And it wasn't until I got to this first pivotal comment that I realized what it was. Oh, Chester, we miss you. There was something so true about this burden, about this grief that we all carry and how unkind it can be. Because the further we get from the trauma, the less permission we feel that we have to express our pain. We will never get over Chester's loss. And so it feels like this unspoken camp is Camp 0, which is the path that we left behind. We would all prefer that Chester would still be here, that Linkin Park would be as it was and they would still be creating. His family would have their dad, his band would have their vocalist, his friends would have their buddy, but suicide ended that path. 7 years later, and there's still real pain, real grief, real loss. And seeing Linkin Park relaunch, for some, may cause a re-experiencing of that pain. This comment reminded me of the common pain that we all share and the compassion that we need to hold with each other as we experience this. We all lost a man who helped us walk through hard seasons, who moved us to keep moving forward, to keep trying, to keep creating, gave a voice to the pain we all carry. This compassion should be layer 1 in our grid of interpreting this situation. If you're experiencing anger towards this situation, all of it is a real anger and hatred for suicide and what it's taken from you. This isn't what it should have been, bottom line, point blank, period. And allowing your anger to have a seat at the table in the right way can actually be really helpful. We can aim our anger in the right direction towards suicide, not towards other people or even towards the band you love. You're allowed to experience the bitterness of this relaunch. You're allowed to experience the sweetness of this relaunch. They can coexist. We're all in the wake of tragedy. We all experience it in different flavors. We are all broken and we are all human. If we had one thing to say, it's give space. Give space to your heart. Give space to your pain. Give space to others. Their processing does not invalidate yours. So don't use your pain to invalidate others. with a foundation of compassion for ourselves, our own grief, and the grief of others. The second comment that totally rocked me took me in an entirely new direction and away from myself altogether. The group has decided to move forward with a new voice, and we still need to support them. We still need to support them. This took me above myself and my own choice of is this right or not. It put me in the shoes of the band as humans. They lost their friend, they lost their identity, they lost their life. Us as fans cannot even comprehend what it was like for those who knew and loved Chester personally to lose him. What would it be like to carry the silence and grief for 7 years? What would it be like to get back on stage without one of your best friends? What would it be like to have such a heavy burden? What would it be like to watch your friends' kids grow up without a dad? And then to muster up the courage and put on a guitar strap and walk back on stage. Can you imagine? These are real people living in the wake of real trauma. If the roles were reversed, imagine yourself standing on that stage, looking out into a sea of fans. Your heart is vulnerable. You haven't been there in years. And the last time you were there, it looked entirely different. Wouldn't you want their support in that moment? Whether or not they like your music or agree with the decision that you've made, wouldn't you want them to see the courage that it took for you to step back on that stage and meet you with love, to honor the scars that you are living with and be there for you? What if it's about real people bringing purpose to their pain and celebrating their courage to do so, cheering them on as they move through the deepest grief that they've ever felt in their life? This moment, this decision, this chapter, what if it's not about me? What if it's not about you at all? One of my favorites in the scene, Brent Smith from Shinedown, made a post that I think really honors this perspective. So I asked all of you, give them the opportunity to not close their chapter. Allow them to celebrate their legacy and also the opportunity to create a new one. The final comment that closed out my perspective on this decision came from Mike Shinoda. When we think about functionally what the band did, it can be easy to think that they replaced Chester. And that's why this comment absolutely rocked me. In the role of Chester Bennington, all of you. It says everything. There is a hole to fill, but it is too big to fill with one person. In order to fill this hole, it would take all of us, all of Linkin Park's fan base, everyone who's loved and listened to their music, everyone who loved Chester and wants to honor him and his legacy. And if we're tasked with the role of being like Chester and carrying on his legacy, in the end, Chester wouldn't want us to go numb. Allow yourself to experience all that you're feeling. Sometimes we have to crawl, even if it's not perfect. Moving forward in tough times is a part of the journey. And this place, this fan base, this music is intended to be somewhere I belong, somewhere we all belong. So when you're feeling empty, keep him in your memory and leave out all the rest. And as you engage in this chapter of the story, choose to be one more light.